Are you buying your first synthesizer or trying to find an option that is low cost, low space, that will really make some awesome sounds? I am a guitarist normally, but I love synths and keyboards as a side thing. And the first option I want to show you is the Korg Monologue. So, when we think about this is a monophonic synthesizer. It's about $200. It's really well built, and it's kind of like the little brother to the Minilogue, which is a little bit more expensive. And I would kind of say that might be more advanced than what we want to get into today. So as the name implies, the Monologue is a mono synth. That means one note comes out at a time. That's great. And in fact, like, the mono thing is actually really cool for making great bass lines and even doing some great step sequences, which is kind of the bread and butter of what this thing can do. You can see that wood backplate. I think it's a really good kind of harkening back to vintage synth design. And with two VCOs, an LFO, and the ASDR that you'd expect from a synth, this thing offers a lot, but it also has a lot of really unique kind of like switches to be able to change the way, the timbre of the sound you're putting out, and ultimately, like, it's easy to use, it's fun out of the gate, and it has a lot of presets, but also has many empty patches that you can write to, which I think will be a lot of fun for anybody who's putting together some quick sounds or just wants to make something happen. And the idea here is that this is really like hands on keys, really fun real-time activation of a beautiful synthesizer. There are workstations and other tools that can do more. There is no arpeggiator on this keyboard, which is one of the potential detractors here. But the hold feature on the step sequencer that we're looking at right now really does allow you to do a lot, and having those presets along with the empty slots that you can put your patches into does really give you a lot of flexibility. And this thing is like super cheap. It's about $200 ish, and I think you'll have nothing but fun with it. Of course, it is all analog or virtual analog, so you're not going to have those PCM perfect trumpets, perfect tambourines, kalimbas, or whatever dumb instrument you're trying to replicate. But the idea here is that this is a true electronic instrument that is doing some amazing stuff. It has like a good LFO, but I think that the two VCOs working together and the filter, which is not the most dynamic filter, still does give you a lot of bang for the buck. And I really love the packaging of this instrument. And like everything here, they are going to be MIDI clocked. So if you're working with a DAW setup or even working with a digital audio workstation, you would be able to control your timing by way of other instruments if desired. So next up is the Behringer MS1, which is a Roland clone, or a clone of the Roland SH01. This thing is so direct and in your face. There are no presets. You are doing all of the synthesis on your own. It does have an arpeggiator. It does have like a really good LFO. And of course, as you can see from that dong that is out to the left of it, or what is the formal word? I guess, it is able to be used as a keytar. I think this synthesizer is built like for full fun. There is so much that is great to use, and it does have that, like, the 16 note, 8 note, 4 note, 2 note thing that we saw on a lot of very old vintage synths. So this is like a little bit of a bridge from like 70s synths into the 80s. But being that it's a clone that is produced today, you're not going to have to deal with any leaky capacitors or any of the other, garbage that comes out with those very old instruments. So you're getting all the fun, all the pleasure of having, a very raw analog style synth with none of the pain of old equipment. So I really do think that this one is fun. It's very inexpensive, and you can do nothing but wrong. And I really like that Behringer got away with this one because the form factor, the styling of the synth feels so much like the real SH01 that you kind of forget that it's not a Roland instrument as you play with it more. And everything is well labeled. The mapping of the sound is not all the time super clear, and the step sequencer and the arpeggiator are kind of like a little annoying to work with, but they're pretty good. The filter on this is pretty wild, and the fact that you can have those like dual octaves tonings or applications of the tone does give you that what's it, paraphonic, or that deep rich sound. So if you want to like cut through your mix, this thing can do it, and it's also like super tight. So if you're doing stuff that like just needs the synth to come in for an interlude, or maybe it's dropping it's adding into the bass line, this thing will do it for you. There's like glide, and the LFO on here is also pretty dynamic, but for me, like, I don't find that interesting, but many of you may. So I also would say that this instrument does so much for you to be able to kind of get to the sound you're trying to get to, but it's all in your hands. So as a beginner or like a first synth, like, I would say this is one that you really should think about, because it can just tell you how to use the various components, like a VCO, like an LFO, like a VCF, VCA, to make your synthesizer do the things you want to do. And of course, there's like cookbooks and everything that can help you, arrive to sounds, and those are great. But this one, I think, is really made for instant satisfaction and fun. But it's all hands on, so get ready. Okay, we're staying in the red zone here with the MicroKorg XL. This thing is a radius-based Korg that has so many options, including the vocoder. Look at that gooseneck mic that is right in your face there. But it does have a lot of amazing features. This is a polyphonic synth. 10 years ago, I would have said the other thing that I'm showing on screen right now, the original MicroKorg, would have been your optimal choice for your kind of like first synth or way to learn or kind of augment your sounds. This one, I think, is way better, and certainly has a lot more control. However, those two big knobs do allow you to kind of like select through different sound types. Given that this is polyphonic, it is a micro key synth, so there's like some challenges there. I love the polyphony, and I do also think that this synth has so much to offer when we're looking at trying to make it feel like natural instruments as well as legit analog sounds. So if you're looking for something that can do some good strings, some good pads, some things that you'd expect from a a larger synth that maybe a virtual analog can't do so well. This one can do it. It's really powerful. I am ready for you. Do you wanna play another game with me? It's very annoying with lots of feedback, or maybe even you. Are you ready to kill me? I am ready to kill you. This is not a good song. I don't like it anymore. This is not a time. This is not a rhyme. I can say things in this vocoder. The vocoder on this keyboard is really a good feature. And honestly, it's a load of fun. I think it's like, if I was to sum up the MicroKorg XL, it's like everything that's good about the Radius with way less kind of complication. There is with the nested controls a lot to like learn, and kind of you can only use those three knobs to the right there to adjust the filter and such. So the real-time tweakability is far less than some of the other options. However, I think what you're getting here is some really good slices of what Korg could do with their instrumentation, and I think there's enough tweakability. The ARP arpeggiator is extremely useful on this board. When I use it normally, I usually use it via a controller because I don't like these mini keys. These mini keys are, however, better than the original MicroKorg, which has, basically feels like, toy Casio or Yamaha keys from the 80s. But this is the Wurlitzer sound, and I actually think it sounds pretty good. Like, you can do some really nice, blues or whatever with kind of that Fender Rhodes or Wurlitzer sound, which is nice. So, having a thing that can do grindy analog, but also, put out some sounds that feel like real, or maybe old school vintage sounds, like, it's a good mix. And some of these string sounds and such, they may sound like a little bit like video game music from the 90s, but I still think that they can give you that ambience and the things that you're trying to look for, especially if you're doing anything live where, you can make a rich soundscape. The pads are good, and hopefully, it's a good way for you to get a blend in this instrument of like some of the elements of an analog synth with also kind of a good mix of other types of instrumentation. So the last option I want to show is the Behringer Grind. This is a desktop synth. As you can see, it does have kind of notes here that can be played directly on the synth, but it is going to be way better if you connect it to a MIDI device. So I'm using the Korg Monologue as a controller here. However, like, you can use any MIDI synth as a controller. The nice thing about this is that it does have, more capability and kind of a better feeling than many of the other synths that we showed here. However, let's focus on the Grind. So the Grind is basically a clone of the Brains from Mutable, which I guess closed shop, and then there's some also capabilities that Behringer brought over from their Crave. So really, this one is interesting because if you're trying to get into modular synthesis and everything, I think this gives you a lot of options. If you see all of those kind of like patch connections up at the top of the grind, those allow you to kind of reroute the ins and outs of your audio chain and really can allow you to, modify the sound. And of course, this allows you then to work with other modular tools to do even more. So if you're really trying to step into that broad world of synthesis, this may be your best option, and I would definitely recommend it as a first go at for anyone who's trying to learn synthesis. And basically because like every option here, every control is like more dynamic than anything. So the LFO does a wide range. The filters are extraordinarily dynamic. The ASDR also, kind of really goes to the extreme, almost too much. But at the same time, having that much control with a pretty simple monosynth allows you to kind of really explore what can you do with sound. So, I hate the word sound designer. I think that is a stupid term. Like, we're musicians, let's call it that. But if you're going down that road, this one is definitely a great starter. And I find it, like, for what I try to do or what I want to do, is giving me a lot of flexibility, and also the fun factor is pretty high here. So no presets, but you do have kind of like 24 waveforms across a few banks, and it does allow you to kind of like set your own if you want, or at least has room for people for upgrades. But like this thing, if you're really kind of trying to explore the extremities of like what can you do with a synthesizer for like under $200, it's gonna rock your world. So hopefully you found this entire video useful, and I do think that each one of these synths is awesome in their own right. However, like the Behringer Grind is probably the most extreme one. So if you're really trying to explore the modular world and what you can do with it, this is for you. If you're looking for basically like a really clear cut like mono synth that is gonna give you some out of the box fun, the Monologue is there for you. The SH01 I think is ready for you if you're really looking for that raw early 80s vintage synth style. And of course it's got the keytar side of it. The MicroKorg XL with the vocoder is a good all-rounder that also has amazing ARP features, but doesn't have step sequencing. So I think each one of these is like cool, and I'm like happy to own all of them. I do really enjoy playing with each one of them. However, like you may have other things or other goals, and may not want to have 25 synths lying around at every moment like I do. So hopefully this video was entertaining, useful, and I definitely welcome your thoughts around other starter synths that would be right for people. I've been playing in this space for a long time, so hopefully I know a thing or two, but I definitely am always interested in learning. So thanks for watching. Take care.